Absolutely. So when you let's start like age wise to try and break this down. What
Yeah.
should parents do in those very early like weeks and months with a baby? And do you think it impacts development a lot later on?
Yeah. So anything that you do in the forefront, right, always is going to benefit your child. So with any kind of skill, and with any kind of an activity, like a supportive developmental activity, I always say that it's better to start early than to not start at all. So in those very first months, let's talk about like the first 4 to 6 months, for example, or like maybe even like just the first 6 months. You can do like children's vision is still developing, right, in those first 6 months. So they have black and white vision, right? So one thing that we love to do is recommend black and white books. I know sometimes when you walk into a store, right, you see all those really, really big, bright, shiny books and they're super fun and they're super cute. And you just want to grab all of them off of the shelf. But if we really think critically about where kids are in those first 6 months, they are attracted to high contrast pictures because their vision is still developing. They're seeing kind of like grayscale. So we want to engage them and show them some really nice high contrast pictures. So black, whites, and reds, right? So reading books with them that have those nice high contrast pictures, and then also using lots and lots of exaggeration, making lots of silly faces, making silly sounds, making silly shapes with your mouth because they're looking, right? They're looking for that visual stimulation. So in playing with them and in reading with them, you're giving that to them. And then you're also starting to support those building blocks of language.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
think it also helps just habit forming. Like you're talking out loud all the time.
Yeah.
You're um expressive and engaging. And the reading, I think it almost I always felt silly like my kid's a week old. Like, why am I reading a book? And
Yeah.
like as pediatricians, we say, read them a book, read them a book, read them a book.
Yeah.
But I think it's more so like habit forming and exercise forming and the exposure that
Mhm.
is so important too when they're little.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I know that book reading too can be something like where parents feel really silly doing it. And the way that I read books sometimes, my families will see it for the first time and say, oh, I don't read a book like that. Whoa, like, how do you do that? It might feel silly in the beginning, but just remember the big picture that it's all language building. And there's so many other things other than reading a book, right? I am like a booknista. You can see I have like shelves of books behind me. But it is really narrating what you see throughout the day, right? Using parentees. So parentees is that high pitched, sing songy, really stretched out way of talking. And when parents don't understand when I'm explaining parentees, I know that they know one person that we both know, and that's Miss Rachel, right? She uses that high pitched, sing songy voice, and that's why children are really attracted to her when she presents songs or like when she's talking. And so you do it naturally when you see a little child, right? So it's something that comes naturally to adults when we see small children, is that naturally our voice goes up and then we get really sing-songy and really like over exaggerate our voice. So that's something that research shows that babies' brains actually hold on to. They are very attracted to parentees. So let's use that kind of talking to be able to build up their language skills and map language onto their brain. So hi, right? Like while you're doing a diaper change, hello, good morning, right? Oh, that's stinky. Let's take up, right? And you're doing a
Yeah.
diaper change, and it's something that you would do anyways, right? I think the statistics is like in the first year of a child's life, they get 8 to 10 diaper changes a day. That is a lot of diaper changes, right? So it's something that's happening naturally in the routines anyway. So why not take that opportunity to talk about what you're doing, to maybe sing a song, right? Peekaboo is really great to play in the first year because children are working on joint engagement, which is I see this thing, you also see this thing, we're looking at it together, right? And then children are also working on something called object permanence, which is just because your eyes disappear doesn't mean that you've left the room. You're still there, right? So when you cover your eyes and you go pika, your child is actually going, oh my goodness, where'd mama go? Oh my goodness, where'd dada go, right? And then you go boo, and they go, oh, dad's eyes were just covered, but just because I couldn't see their eyes, that doesn't mean that their body was, was not there, right? They're still there.
Hmm.
And that translates to later language because children learn that we can still talk about things that are not in the room. So that's kind of the association with language that comes later on. So we can talk about the car that's outside while we're in the living room. So it's really helpful to be able to build some of those skills. And singing songs, there's so many really fun nursery rhymes, and you can even make up your own, which is what I do as part of my job. job every day is that I just
Oh,
make up
that's hilarious.
songs. Yeah. And they're called piggyback songs. So I'll take a tune that I know, and then I'll just change the lyrics, and then I'll talk about what we see in the room, or I might talk about what we're playing with, right? The piggy on the bus goes moo, 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 because we're playing
Yeah,
with a
yeah.
pig, a piggy toy. And I said moo,
Yeah.
moo, moo. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? I said the piggy on the bus does not
I
go
didn't
moo.
even catch it.
No, did not sing that. The piggy
I
on
was
the bus
like,
does not go moo.
that's great.
The piggy on the bus does not go moo. It goes oink. But you can kind of change the lyrics based on what you're playing with, right? If you're playing with a pig in a school bus, you can change the lyrics and sing that way. And those are
Yeah.
all language building strategies. So there's lots and lots and lots to do, I think, in the first
I
year.
credit Baby Shark with being the most catchable tune of the century. And I think all my, I guess you're calling them piggyback tunes,
Yeah, piggyback songs.
are to Baby Shark, and I need to change that. I mean, like we do change the dice, change the dice,
Yeah.
I didn't even know I was doing it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you're doing it. Sometimes parents don't notice what they're doing. And I love to call that out. Like, did you just notice that you just made up a song? Or did you just notice that you did X, Y, and Z? And they're like, oh wow, is that helpful? And I say, yeah. So some of the things families are doing already, and they just don't know that it's helpful, right? But they know to do it. So I give credit to families for doing a lot more than they think too.
Right, like it's inherent, and they're doing a great job at
Yeah.
baseline. I think there's a lot of concern and worry that just comes naturally also with being a parent. So when do parents really need to worry? If you want to break it down into age groups or something for the explanation for this, because I know it's very nuanced, but when is it warranted for that we worry?
Yeah. So I'll actually do this. I'll answer your question by talking about like 3 key skills that children need to have in each
Great.
age group. And then we'll talk overall, right, in the first 3 years, what parents need to look out for. Because I think it's helpful to know what you should expect, right? And then that should also help guide when you should worry. So I have like my little handy dandy list here. So in the first 3 months, we're really looking for a baby to cry and coo, right? That's when we start hearing those long vowel sounds. Ooh, ah, and they're just kind of trying to figure out their voice, and that's called vocal play. And then they're also smiling in the first 3 months, right? And then they start to recognize your voice while you talk. And between 4 to 6 months, we're looking for them to do something called canonical babbling, which is the earliest form of babbling. So they're just taking a consonant sound and a vowel sound, and they might go ma, right? Or they might go right? So we're just looking for them to start to have those nice consonant sounds, pair them with some vowel sounds, and then really start to do the earliest forms of babbling. And then around this time, we're also looking for them to giggle and laugh, right? That's kind of the first indications of social language and how they use language to communicate with other people. And then during the first 7 to 11 months, that's when we really start getting lots of language. So we're really looking for kids to start putting strings of vowels and babbles together. So they might go ba 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 ba, or ma 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 ma. And then what we're looking in this kind of babbling is that kids are repeating the same strings of sounds over and over again, right? So ma or ba or p, they're saying that sound over and over again. And then at that time, they might start to look at you when you ask them a question, right? They start to try to experiment with different speech sounds. And then they also like to play games, right? Which is why I tell you in the first year, playing peekaboo or like I Spy or something like that while you're doing the diaper changes. They actually enjoy doing this in the first year. So why not use it to build language? And then at 12 months, right, we start to get some words, but then we're also getting lots of something called variegated babbling. So that's when they have babbles that have different strings of sounds together. So it might sound like this, right? And then I love it too. Like that. Yeah, and then around this time too, it kind of starts to sound like they're having a conversation with you, right? And then they're so in their conviction that they're talking to you and that they're telling you like a story about what happened, and it sounds very conversational. It sounds like an adult conversation, but it's lots of nonsense, and that's something called jargon, right? So we might have so that's when we get lots of jargon that starts to come up, and then so at 12 months, we're looking for children to have 1 to 5 words. Sometimes when I say that, my parents automatically freak out, but I want to explain what that range means because I think it's really important to know what those numbers mean. So the lowest number of the range always is the milestone. That's what most kids are doing. That's what 90% of kids are doing. So 90% of kids at 12 months have about 1 to 2 words. And then the second number in the range is the highest number, right? That's the average. So many kids are doing this. So about 50% of kids have 5 words. So 12 months, we're looking for between 1 to 5 words, but really looking for at least 1 word. Yeah, so it's always helpful for, I think, parents to understand that. So if your child has 1 word or 2 words and they don't have 5, that's good.
Mhm.
They're still doing what they need to do, which is at least 1 word. And then we're also looking for really good gestures around this time. So we're looking for about 10 gestures. And what I tell families is that we're looking for 10 meaningful gestures, right? So gestures vary across cultures, they vary across households. So maybe you might not have the thumbs up, right, in your culture, but you still have hi and bye, right? Or you still have putting your hands up and putting your hands down, or you still have blowing a kiss. So we're looking for about 10 meaningful gestures. And then in 18 months, we're looking for 10 to 50 words. Again, if your child falls anywhere in between, they're doing pretty good. And we're looking for 16 gestures by 16 months. Again, any meaningful gestures that carry meaning in your household. And then at 24 months, we're looking for between 50 to 300 words. And then at 36 months, this is like the biggest gap, right? 250 to 1,000 words at 36 months. So it's a pretty big gap, but we're looking for at least 250 words. So I like to talk about what we should expect before talking about kind of like when we should get worried.